you brought your friends, singing, "Watch it go down." Watch it go down. I got mine too. So welcome to my house. Welcome to my house. 'Cause these are my people. And this is my land. This is my land. This is what we pray for. And this is God's.
Hey everybody, this is episode 3 of the Hot Corner. Got my co-host AJ as always. How you doing, AJ?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good. We got a good show tonight. We'll be breaking down the fall and previewing the spring coming up for Arkansas and Kentucky. We got Mason Moore of the Kentucky Wildcats and Gage Wood from the Arkansas Razorbacks. How we doing tonight, fellas?
Good. How y'all doing? Thanks for having us.
Doing great, man. Appreciate y'all hopping on. Hey, I'm going to start this off for it's a question for both of you guys. You know, neither one of your teams really finished the season how they wanted to. How does that fuel you guys coming into this year?
It gives us, a good amount of fuel. Last year we made it, not many people expected us to make it all the way to supers. And I think, now that we've been there, I think it just made us more hungry going into this fall and into next spring. I think it was a nice learning curve for the returners for this year's team. And I think, getting that success and kind of feeling, knowing what that's feeling like is going to make us more hungry for this year.
Yeah, kind of what he said, it kind of fuels you, we kind of had an upset there in the regionals, and, that just kind of stings a little bit. So I feel like we've worked really hard after that upset, and I think it's just going to fuel us even more and just kind of get us going for this year, just ready for it to start.
Yeah, and Gage, I'm going to target you on this one. Arkansas, lost a lot of veteran leadership off of last year's squad. What has it been like in the clubhouse? New leaders emerging, trying to, maybe set up a new culture a little bit. And who are some guys who have really been, emerged as leaders over this past offseason to take the new guys in the clubhouse and try to help Arkansas get back to Omaha?
McIntyre, he's still here, so you always got to look up to him. He's been here a while. He was also a leader last year. He might not have been voted team captain, but he's still a leader. And then Stovall, who was a team captain last year, he's always kind of being a leader for everybody, which is great to have. And I feel like Hagan, everyone kind of looks up to him, especially on the pitching staff. He's going to be one of the best in the country this year, if not the best. He's just unreal. So I feel like all the pitchers kind of look up to him and know like that you need to like treat things how he treats them, because he's not that good for no reason. So I'd say those guys have really stepped up and shown us a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, Mason, this one's for you, man. Rumor is that you're going to be transitioning from the bullpen into starting role. What's that transition like for you, and how are you preparing for it?
It's been a big transfer for me. These last 2 years I've obviously been out of the bullpen, and the biggest thing for me is trying to figure out my routine. Again, in that starting role, especially in the fall, you have a whole hour before you have to throw a bullpen, and I was trying to figure out what I can do, treatment wise, before a game, and being in that bullpen, you have about 7 or 8 throws until you got to be out there and get mentally right. So the biggest thing for me is just trying to figure out my routine and what works for me, pregame. And I've talked to former guys that have played here and who have started, and they give me some tips. But the biggest thing for me is just trying to figure out what works best for me.
All right, and this is for both of y'all, both being relievers. I think one of the more important things for a bullpen is to have guys have some sort of role where they feel comfortable in and feel like it's that time of the game they're going to go in. How do you balance as a reliever knowing that you could get a call, basically, someone gets hurt on the mound and you can need to go in immediately versus, your expected role? How do you stay ready at all times and, basically don't know if you're going to throw Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
The biggest thing for me is I try not to think too much about it. Honestly, when I'm, during a game, I like to have as much fun as I can when I'm not throwing. But the coaches do a pretty good job of getting us a little heads up of when we might throw. I might get a text, the night before, or, from Coach Roselle, be like, "Oh, be ready for tomorrow. Like we could use you," and that's kind of like my telltale sign that I need to get, mentally right for tomorrow's game during the game, especially. But like I said, the biggest thing for me is I try not to think too much about it because I feel like if I think too much about it, then I'm just going to add pressure that doesn't need to be added on myself.
Yeah, I think the coaches do a pretty good job of letting us know, like, if something's going to happen and, like, we're going to go in, like, they'll let us know. Say, like, all right, he has one more batter, you need to be ready. Or, like, sometimes, it's kind of like an injury happened. We had a few of those last year. So, like, sometimes you just kind of have to keep yourself ready down there, especially when it's, like, colder here in Arkansas at the beginning of season or wherever you're playing. You just kind of have to stay ready and like just keep your body moving and loose at all times, that way you can come in like just in case a freak accident happens. But I would say the coaches do a pretty good job for the most part of letting you know like beforehand and like keeping you updated when you might go in.
Okay, just one's for you, man. So what are some of the things that you've really focused on working in this off season for you personally to improve your game?
I really worked on throwing just like more strikes with all of my pitches. Last year I was kind of fastball, curveball mainly, throw a slider every now and then. And now this year I've started getting my third and fourth pitch, which slider and a splitter, and really being able to throw those to whenever I want, as strikes, and just be more consistent in the strike zone with all of my pitches, which has really helped me find a lot more success on the mound.
Mason, I'm going to kind of ask the same question, just worded a little differently. Your jump from freshman to sophomore year, like performance-wise, was insane. I think you had one of the best opposing batting average in school history last year. You had through 55 innings out of the bullpen, allowed 31 hits. What did you do to improve from freshman to sophomore year, and what did you do, and what currently are you doing to improve upon last year?
From freshman to sophomore year, it was really just the mental side for me. Is the whole confidence. I have a hard time with that, especially playing the SEC. Like your confidence is going to get shot down a little bit, and that was the biggest thing for me. Is from freshman year, I was always debating on if I belonged here at UK, and I had to talk to a lot of older guys like Darren and Tyler Guilfoyle and Harney about all that confidence. And they got me through that freshman year, and I had a decent freshman year. It wasn't good, but it wasn't horrible either. But especially my sophomore year, I mean, it was nice getting in certain positions in games. Having the coach's trust, like in a 3-4 ball game. Once you feel like you have the coach's trust, it's a lot easier out there on the mound because, no matter what situation, if you have their trust, it just makes everything easier. Especially right now, what I'm working on is being able to throw all my off speed for strikes whenever I want to. Especially out of the bullpen role, I was more of a sinker changeup guy and like occasional slider, like Gage said. And the biggest thing I'm trying to work on right now is just throwing all 4 of my pitches for strikes whenever I want to.
This one's kind of for both you guys. So give us some names of some of the newcomers on your teams, whether that's freshmen or transfers, that have really stood out this fall, made a big impression.
I'm gonna go first on this one. I would say a bunch of these new freshman arms we got in. Let's say 2 really big ones: Hunter Dietz, Gabe Gackle, and then you got Tate McGuire. Those are just the 3 off, and Colin Fisher. Those 4, like off the top of my head, we got a bunch, and those guys really stood out this fall. Made some names for themselves and really impressed a lot of guys. And then on the hitter side, I would say Vahiva Eloy. He's legit. He's going to help us out a lot this year. Jack Wagner at first base. He's really good first baseman and all that. And then those are about the only 2 I can think of top of my head. Will Edmondson, Ty Wilmsmeyer tracks anything down in center field. And then Stone Hewlett, It's kind of like a crafty lefty, you know, like big left on left guy. He's a pitcher from KU. All these guys are really gonna help us out a lot. Those are just what I can name off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more. I don't want to leave anyone out, you know.
And from my side, it's more of a lot of transfers. We have a lot of good arms. You know, we got Dominic Neiman, we got Trey Poos, we got Johnny Hummel, Cameron O'Brien. You know, those guys have really, you know, so far have adapted. You know, different from come from different programs. They stood out a lot, especially Trey Poos. He's got a crazy sinker and a nasty curveball. We got Johnny Hummel's got a nasty curve, and then from position players, we got Ryan Nicholson from Cincy. You know, he's had a big impact. You know, he's kind of replacing Gilly right now. And then we have a couple of freshmen, actually. We got Ethan Hindle. He had a really good fall. I remember it was a couple weeks into the fall, and he actually hit a about 400-foot bomb off me. It was a fastball down the middle, and first pitch of the AB hits a home run on me. He had a really good fall, especially against when we played Michigan. He played really good. He actually had to start for us that game. And then we got Nick Lopez from USC. He's going to be a good bat in the lineup for us. But like I said, that's all I could think of right now. Just because, you know, I'm a pitcher. I don't hang out with, you know, position guys at practice. But I know there's more, obviously, but that's all I could think of as of now.
And I'm going to go again. I forgot three big ones, especially our two Texas Tech transfers. Mason Molina is going to be a big role in the pitching staff. And then catcher Hudson White. Yeah, great player, you know, even better guy. He's going to help us out a lot this year offensively, behind the plate, and with a bat. And another freshman we brought in, Ryder Helfrich. Honestly, don't even know how we got him. He is, it's something you don't see every day to see a freshman that talented and just kind of aware of the game, especially at this level. I mean, you couldn't come out to one of our scrimmages and see him play and think, oh, that kid's a freshman. Like, you would think he's an older guy, just the way he carries himself and plays the game.
Mason, this one's for you. So it seems like, you know, a lot of SEC programs, it's, you know, power on power, you know, it's home runs, it's guys throwing 97, 98. There are a couple guys at Kentucky who can hit those higher velos, but the long ball wasn't really a part of y'all's approach last year. It seemed to be just a very scrappy bunch that can take 2 or 3 runs every inning. How do you have confidence in knowing that you're going to go up against the best pitching staffs in the country and still have an offense that can do that against those staffs?
Just like you said, we're scrappy. You know, we never think that we're out of the fight. And the coaches do an awesome job of getting us a great game plan on the opposing pitchers. And, you know, we're always battling in the batter's box. And just like you said, you know, we're really scrappy. And I think our drive to want to win and, like, always want to compete also helps with that. You know, obviously we don't hit a lot of home runs, but we do get, like, a lot of singles, doubles. And we bunt a lot. I don't know if anybody else bunts more than we do, but that's part of our game. And, you know, not many other colleges probably see that very often. I think that's what helps us, you know, be able to get that bunt down and get runs across the board.
So, Gage, this one's for you, man. Arkansas has been known for kind of, for elite defense, last few years. How is it pitching knowing that you've got, some dudes behind you that can pick them up?
Oh, you know, it's great. I mean, I can still remember last year, you know, when the series against Ole Miss, like, if it wasn't for my defense, like, I would end up losing us that game. Like, they always compete their butts off back there for you, so you kind of have to do the same for them. But just knowing you have them back there, like, you're not scared to let the hitters put the ball in play at all. You know, like, you honestly have more confidence in your defense sometimes than you do yourself out there. You know, that was one thing for me last year. And it's something that I never really got to experience as a pitcher. And now that I have that behind me, it helps a lot, you know, like, I don't even know how to explain it any better. It's something you can only pretty much dream of, having those kind of gloves behind you in pretty much every position.
So obviously both of y'all pitching in the SEC, y'all have both pitched in some incredible environments. Going to try to get a two-parter here. Give me favorite environment y'all have pitched in so far, and then one you're looking forward to pitching in this upcoming season.
The best environment I've ever thrown in was definitely LSU, the box. Their fans, they get after it. I actually had a couple fans, when I was warming up in the bullpen. I had two fans, yelling at me. It was a husband and a wife, and the husband was trying to fight me, was trying to climb over the wall and try and get to me. It was just chaos. But that's what makes the game fun. I like that type of stuff. That's what gives me energy to go out there and want to compete with the other team. And then one environment that I actually have not been to yet, I think we're playing at their place this year, is Ole Miss, I think, and I'm excited to play at that place. I haven't been to it at all, but I've heard it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say craziest environment. There's a difference between craziest and best for me, but the craziest was definitely the box in Baton Rouge. That was something to experience, especially as like a freshman going out there pitching, like he said, fans right next to the bullpen, right there chirping at you, like saying God knows what. But and it just wasn't a really good spot for me to say that that was like the best environment I played, because I wasn't really like one of the dudes coming out of the pen yet. So I was basically pitching a meaningless inning there. So I couldn't say that's the best yet. But the best I witnessed was definitely either when we played in Globe Life, or in probably just Bomb. We have our fans do a great job of showing up, even if it's just midweek games. And then especially like weekends like Tennessee, South Carolina weekend, A&M, when all those teams came in, like our fans do a great job of showing up and supporting us. And I'm not really sure which stadium I'm looking forward to playing at, but I would say I really want to go to probably Florida. I just like to see their ballpark and play there.
Yeah, the thing about Florida is nice new ballpark. Apparently, the fans don't show up in the regular season, so
Not a whole lot.
So Mason, we were just talking about ballparks. Your ballpark is one of, if not the biggest, ballpark in terms of the outfield space. In the conference. What does that give you a lot of confidence? To that the park's gonna hold a pitch even if you maybe make a little bit of a mistake.
Oh, absolutely. I could count a couple times where I've left a couple pitches down the middle and the ballpark kind of saved me. But also I don't like it because our hitters, it hurts them a little bit too. But on the pitching side of things, it's nice, knowing that not many guys are going to hit, a lot of nukes on you. If they do, then it's an absolute nuke because our field is huge. It plays big. That's the only bad thing about it is when you do give up a nuke, it's for sure a nuke. But like you said, it does give me all the confidence in the world just to kind of go out there and kind of have that freedom to, maybe, mess up once or twice, But like I said, there's a good and there's a bad to it, but on the pitching side, it's definitely a good thing.
Gage, you come in as a freshman and you're facing, a dynamic SEC lineup. You're doing the same thing again this offseason. How does facing a lineup like that day in, day out, just facing just absolute dudes, make you better as a pitcher?
Well, something I really like, is like if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. So, I mean, it kind of just like if you're playing better competition, it's going to make you better at the same time. But it also really challenged me to like find that confidence within myself, especially last year. I struggled with that at first. Like he said, it's the freshmen, it's the SEC, you're kind of questioning yourself. But I feel like really getting out of I guess that freshman stage, I guess that's what you could call it, that really helps a lot. But definitely facing that's the best college hitters in the country, the best lineups, best teams. It definitely makes you better as a player mentally and just better as a pitcher, because you got to be able to respond to adversity. If you start the inning and they get a leadoff double, you got to be like, okay, now let's get to work. You can't just be like, oh, I'm screwed now. You can't quit. You just got to keep going.
Yeah, Mason, this question's for you, man. Can you talk a little bit about Devin Burks? What he kind of means to y'all's team. I know there were some questions whether he's going to come back this year, but he's back. He's catching behind the plate. Just talk about what he means to Kentucky baseball.
It means a lot to us. He's our big energy guy. There's not a time he's at the field and you can tell he's upset at anything. He's always got a smile on his face. He's also helped me a lot. Especially last year. He talked me through a lot of things I was dealing with, on the field, and whether it was adversity or just not having that confidence in myself. But when you have him behind the plate, you can never, you know, not have the confidence to go out there and and not feel like you're not going to win. You know, and he gets a lot of strikes for us. I mean, there's been countless times where it's the ball's been below the zone and he's got that strike call for us, and that's one of the main reasons I love Devo catching me is because my ball is typically low in the zone, and there's been a lot of times where he's got me that low ball strike, and having that veteran guy back there, with all that energy, it's just you can't help but have all the confidence in the world in yourself and in him.
This one's for both of y'all. We know, what we see on TV, what we see in the interviews. Take us behind the scenes with, y'all's head coaches. You got Dave Van Horn, you got Nick Mingione. You got two guys with, I personally think they're outstanding coaches, infectious personalities. They obviously know baseball. How do they interact with the team behind the scenes, and how much does the team take on, the coach's personality to a certain extent?
I'd say we love him. He's always there before and later than when we're leaving. He's working harder than we are, and you can't ask for anything better, especially when like someone wants to win so much. And he just has a legacy here too. So like what you're coming into, especially being an in-state kid. You grow up watching the Hogs and everything, and since I can remember, it's been Dave Van Horn, and it's just a dream to come up here, and he has that legacy, and you just gotta be ready for it. And he's a great guy too, even when he's not a coach. He wants the best for you and everything, and he's always going to support you, and you really can't ask for a better head coach. And the team kind of feeds off his energy too, because I mean, he gets really excited, especially when we're doing good. He's gonna get just as pumped as us, get us going. And then but he also sets you straight if you need it, and you can't ask for much more from a coach.
With our head coach, him and Devo are kind of the same when it comes. Coach Minge is big on energy, and like Gage said, we kind of feed off Coach Minge's energy. And he does this one thing. I don't know if y'all have seen it or not, but it'll be during a game, and a foul ball, hit to him, like he like we have this whole thing where he says like don't move, especially to our hitters. Like when it comes like a fastball and like we get hit, it's like we don't move. He actually does that himself when he's coaching third base, and there's been a couple of times where he's been hit with a couple of line drives in fall games and in actual games. So I think we obviously feed off his energy, and he just like any head coach, he's always wanting what's best for us, and we can talk to him about anything, and he's always going to be there for us. But if you need to get yelled at, he'll give it to you. It's honestly kind of scary when he gets mad because I don't really see him get mad a whole lot. So when he does flip that switch, it kind of catches me a little off guard, and like everybody else, it catches them off guard too. But just like with any head coach, we feed off his energy and what he tells us, and we just like his passion for the game, and that's what gives us the hunger to go out there and try and compete the best we can.
Yeah, this one's for both of y'all as well. Well, who's the one batter in the lineup in each of your lineups right now that you hate facing? Like he's coming up in practice, and you're just like, oh man, I know this guy's about to take me yard. Like who's that guy?
Parker Rowland for me this fall. I mean, that guy had a heck of a fall. I mean, it was something like I'd never seen what his bat did. I mean, it was just like I couldn't, no matter what I did, I couldn't get the job done. Even if I got ahead, he found a way to like get a hit, and he actually gave me my first earned run of the fall this year on a solo shot, and he's one of the ones I couldn't get him out this fall.
For me, it definitely had to be Emilian Petrie. He's come a long way since his freshman year. He has such a good eye for the ball. I mean, if it's even a little bit out of the zone, he's not going to swing at it. And he's that crafty lefty that just foul balls off. If there's two strikes, it's hard to strike him out. That's what makes him such a tough AB is, you're not really going to strike that kid out. And he's a competitor, and especially this fall, he was a tough out for me for sure.
Okay, this one's for both of y'all as well. Another two-parter because I like those. On a personal level, what does success mean for y'all this season? And then at a team level, what does success mean?
Good, you got it.
All right. I would say I'm just gonna say that a personal and team level would be kind of the same thing, and that's always to win the last ball game of the year. And that's just something we kind of say around here. Our director of scouting, Zach Barr, he's big about it. He's like, we're working to win the last game of the year. And that's just kind of something each player kind of has. And that's just something we always work towards, But, I mean, a personal would just be like perform the best that I can in order to put my team in a position to win the last game of the year throughout the course of the season.
A personal one goal for me for this year is just kind of like what Gage said, is just to go out there and be able to compete to the best of my ability and, play the game the right way and, always be humble, in any situation. And then for like a team goal is get to Omaha. That's our team goal this year. And, we're expecting nothing less. And I believe that we have the coaching staff and the guys, to get to Omaha this year.
Yeah, Gage, this one's for you, man. You've got you mentioned Parker Rowland earlier and Hudson White, coming in the catching position. How do you think those guys are going to impact your team this year? I mean, Parker's been around, but Hudson's new, and what's it like breaking a new catcher, and kind of which one do you prefer to pitch to?
Either of them. I'll pitch to either of them. They're both great back there, and they got your back just as much as anyone. One thing I enjoy about Parker though is he's always, he's in it just as much as you are. Like he's like anytime you need to make a big pitch, like he lets you know, and like you just he's back there. Me and him just kind of have that. I have that experience with him because I threw to him last year. Throwing to Hudson is new, but Hudson's great as well. I think it's going to help us a lot, because last year Parker was having to catch all 3 games of a weekend series, which, I mean, he says he didn't mind it. He loves catching every day. I mean, every player wants to play every day. But then again, I feel like that also puts a lot of wear and tear on a body, like nobody can just catch 27 innings and still be as fresh as they were the day before. So I think having both of them is going to help us tremendously.
Yeah, Mason. Got one more for you. So last year, I think partially due to the style of play, partially due to y'all being Kentucky and not one of the, quote unquote blue bloods of SEC baseball, there was kind of a certain level of disrespect to the results that y'all winning games, but it wasn't flashy. And it was kind of overlooked because it's Kentucky. To what level did y'all hear that noise and let it get into the clubhouse? And then at what point do you have to just block it out and be like, we're just going to continue to win ball games how we win games?
Well, that was our mindset the whole time. We were worried about us, and we weren't worried about what other people were saying about us. And Coach Mange made sure that we didn't listen to all that noise outside of the field. We're just taking one game at a time, and playing our game and just playing for one another. And the coaches, we didn't really care what anybody else thought about us. I know I didn't. We were just trying to win games and play for each other and play for the coaches. We didn't really listen to outside noise.
Well, AJ, I've run through all the questions I've got. You got anything else?
I do not. Y'all better be studying for exams because I want to see both y'all pitch this spring. You gotta get there. But absolutely, thank y'all for joining us. stay healthy, continue to work, and it's going to be awesome watching y'all throw here in the spring.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you guys hopping on. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Well, AJ, those guys sound pretty impressive, and sound like they're ready for the season to start.
Oh yeah, I am too, and I'm just excited to watch those two teams come back, and both of them made the postseason last year, made pushes towards Omaha, and I think we're going to see improved versions of both teams, and two Omaha caliber teams coming out of the SEC.
Yeah, it's interesting as we're doing our research for all these previews, and we've done a few already. You look at these teams, and a lot of them are dealing with a lot of the same stuff. I mean, a lot of them had older position players last year that kind of graduated off, and now they're kind of seem to be led by the pitching staffs this year, and then the offense may kind of come along this year. It's interesting how that stuff kind of comes and goes in waves, but it's going to be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's always fun. I think we're going to see, with the transfer portal letting people bounce around a little bit more. That is absolutely a benefit to the SEC. Lets guys transfer in after growing into the game a little bit, and we get to see high-end talent. But then also the guys who are homegrown talent. If you look at a roster like Kentucky, they have a lot of guys who have been there for 2, 3, 4 years and been through times where they got snubbed from the tournament, and then all of a sudden they're on the short list of teams that could very well host a regional again this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for Kentucky if that style of ball that they play, which is so different than the rest of the SEC. And you mentioned earlier that it's power arms and power bats, and then here comes Kentucky bunting and stealing and just being a headache. And then at the end of the game, you look up and they won. And it's gonna be interesting to see if that if they're able to sustain that success, or if this was maybe kind of a 1 year, maybe. I don't want to say fluke, but maybe they just had the right mix of guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it. They maybe had the right mix of guys, but a lot of those guys are back, and they're experienced and they're hungry. So it's, I personally think it matches their ballpark perfectly. We talked about how their ballpark is absolutely massive, and you don't need to be hitting all the home runs, and trying to do that in a place where it's cold and the ball doesn't carry for the first 2 months of the year, you're not going to win like that. So they found other ways to win early, and those early wins count the same as late wins. Those, SEC wins are SEC wins. And then, they have the ability to win other ways as well. They just don't necessarily have to flex that muscle early.
Yeah, it's interesting. When they were down in Super Regional, in Baton Rouge, and even when during the regular season, they put up more runs than anybody on Skeens last year, and they really, they kind of got to them a little bit, last year, not just from a a run scored perspective, but just kind of on a mental level. I think he kind of got annoyed with all of the bunting and everything, and hey, if you can get it inside a pitcher's head, especially a guy like Paul Skeens, Skeens kind of turned it back on there in the middle because LSU went up big, in that game. But, that's definitely a recipe for success, and it travels. I mean, they took one from LSU in the Super Regional, and then, like you said, those early wins count the same as late wins.
Yeah, I mean, I love Kentucky's style of play, because it's not just power or contact. They're still hitting the ball very hard. They're finding barrels. It's not like they're rolling over because they don't want to strike out, and it's weak defensive swings. They're still taking very aggressive swings. It's just very much catered towards a line drive first approach and a hit and run, a bunt. But it's still a potent offense. You can go look at their scores and how many runs they put up per game. It doesn't always have to be the home run. Tends to be the easiest way to get them. But, sometimes there's nothing more annoying as a defense than just having balls peppered around you and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and they're certainly a fun team to watch. And, I'm looking forward to seeing Mason get that starting role. I mean, he had a 1.84 ERA last year. I mean, that's gross. And so looking at him having a more prominent role on that pitching staff is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I look at that team and it's a bunch of returning experience, and they're just deep. I see nothing but success for them as long as everybody stays healthy. Um, and I don't think many people are going to overlook Kentucky this year. I think you're going to see a lot of teams be like, I really hope we're not playing at Kentucky anytime soon, because it's cold up there. Guys who, in Columbia or Baton Rouge, Gainesville, Athens, they're not trying to go and play in Lexington, Kentucky. It's cold up there. It's miserable. But you gotta show up and play ball. And for Kentucky, that's, they're practicing outside when it's 33 degrees. As long as it's above freezing, they're going. So I enjoy watching them play. I hate watching them play my team. It's that kind of team, and it's that kind of team that does well towards the end of the year come postseason time.
Yeah, for sure. And the SEC East this year seems, pretty open. Florida's replacing a lot of big time talent. So is Vanderbilt. Those are your traditional powers, but South Carolina's got a lot of good talent coming in. Georgia, interesting to see what they're going to be with Wes Johnson. But it feels like Kentucky can make some moves, in the SEC East this year.
Yeah, Kentucky absolutely can. It's probably hard to predict them winning it. But it's hard to predict any of these teams winning it, because I legitimately think 6 out of the 7 teams in the SEC East could win the SEC East this year. Of course, you got to keep everybody healthy. The one team I just don't think can do it this year so far is Mizzou. But again, we've seen stranger things happen.
Yeah, Mizzou looked really good to start the season last year, and then they just, injuries just decimated that team. But we'll see how it all turns out. And then looking at Arkansas, they lost a ton of veteran leadership, but like Gage mentioned, Peyton Stovall, he's still there. He's super talented. He hasn't quite lived up, I don't think, to quite the expectations he had coming out of high school. He was the number 1 player in the state of Louisiana coming out, and he's been really good, but he hasn't quite taken that next step yet. So hopefully this year he can do that. And then you're getting, you got Hagen Smith and Brady Tigert and just some power arms coming out of that bullpen.
Yeah, Arkansas. When I think Arkansas, I think of pitching, and it's that again this year. You're going to look up and they're going to have their 5th or 6th guy throwing, mid 90s with something wicked as an off-speed pitch, and it's unreal. And then they have offense that, historically over the past couple of years hasn't been the most consistent, but when it's on, it's explosive. And I think they would trade a little bit of that explosiveness for some consistency. But that's hard to do in the SEC. I think additions of guys like Hudson White are absolutely huge for them. Just, again, more veteran leadership and guy behind the plate. But Arkansas, as always, is going to be one of the teams who you look at as your potential top 8 seed.
Yeah, for sure. And they brought in some really talented freshmen, or not freshmen, but transfers. They brought in talented freshmen too, but specifically the transfers. You mentioned Hudson White, and then Gage also mentioned. I'm gonna butcher his name, but Vahiwa Aloy.
Yeah,
from Sacramento State.
I'll let you swing at that one.
Yeah. Guy was a freshman All-American last year, and hit 376 with 14 bombs and 15 doubles. That's a guy that can slot right into the middle of that order. And we'll see where he fits in defensively. He was a shortstop last year, so we'll see where he fits in defensively on this Arkansas team. But that's a guy that's got to be in your lineup, and it might take him a little bit to come around to because he's coming from Sacramento State, so it's a big jump from talent wise coming to the SEC. But this offense, it might take a little while, but it'll come around. Dave Van Horn teams always do.
Yeah, I think his bat speed is real. I think it plays right away. The only thing that I think the question would be is, does he have the approach right away? Is he confident enough to let the pitches come to him, trust his eye, and not try to do too much too early? But he's definitely a guy I can see start at SEC play. He'll be in the middle of that lineup, and he'll be a force.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you got veteran guys like, on the pitching staff, like we mentioned, Tigert and Smith, but then, Will McIntyre, guys that have been around. I mean, Gage Wood himself, he's been around a little while now, that are ready, that have been through the fire of the SEC and know how to handle themselves through an SEC season and have had success. And, I think they've got a nice blend this year of veteran leadership with talented youngsters.
Yeah, and it's veteran leadership. It's talented veteran leadership. I know the youngsters are talented. It seems like they just always reload with young talent. But the important thing for them is going to be the veteran leadership needs to stay healthy and needs to perform. So that way you can supplement your team with the young talent and not have to purely rely on them. I think we've seen with Arkansas, especially, they've gotten so banged up. It seems like at one specific position, whether it be starters, whether it be catchers, whether it be outfielders, that they're relying on people who maybe aren't quite ready to be that everyday starter. And it kind of just lowers their ceiling. If they can just have their guys stay healthy, then we are talking about a formidable, formidable team, arguably one of the most talented teams in the country. It's again, I hope everybody stays healthy, but they are a team that I look at and I'm just, please stay healthy, because a healthy Arkansas team is elite college baseball.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt they've been one of the most consistent programs, most consistent winners of the last decade. Well, they haven't quite gotten as Gage mentioned, they haven't won that last game of the year yet. They had the heartbreaker in 2018, but and then had some struggles getting back to Omaha. I mean, that was the 2021 season where they didn't lose an SEC series, and they were the favorites to win the national championship, and then they don't make it to Omaha. And then last year they had tons of injuries, a lot of hype around the team, but their pitching staff just got devastated by injuries, and they just didn't quite have the depth to make that big run. And then, I mean, I don't know, Trey Richardson at TCU just decided to be Barry Bonds for the weekend, and then they're out of it. So it just goes to show how hard it is to make it to Omaha, that extremely talented teams like Arkansas have not been able to get there in the last few years. And
yeah, I mean, I will always stand by that. The college baseball World Series is the hardest for the best team to win the title, because you got to go through so many different opponents. You got to play so many different games, and all it takes is you running into one hot arm or a couple hot bats on another team, and all of a sudden you are one loss away from elimination, and it doesn't matter what you did up to that point. It's not like basketball where you got 5 guys going at one time. You got one arm on the mound, and if he folds, then that puts you behind the 8 ball. You got one at bat going at a time. He can't pass the ball to somebody else and say, "Here, you go hit. You liked him better." You can't. Everybody has a chance to be exposed in baseball, and there's no hiding for anybody in that lineup, on that field, or on that mound. It's so challenging to get to that point and have the best team come out, because it's baseball. Random things happen. Ground balls hit second base up the middle and turn into doubles. It's so fluky. But it's so beautiful at the same time, and all these guys work so incredibly hard that they're going to do the best to put themselves in the best position to be the last team standing at the end of the day.
yeah, I think one thing's for certain. We've kind of mentioned it already, not just this episode, but previous episodes. Is this season's just going to be a ton of fun, and I can't wait for it to get here.
No, I can't either.
Well, AJ, I think we've got to call it a night. appreciate everybody for listening. We're going to be a little programming note. We'll be off next week as AJ decided his honeymoon was more important than this show. So I guess we can all blame AJ's wife for that.
Yep, self-preservation. It's either honeymoon or the show, and I knew which one was the right choice.
Fair enough. So, but not next Monday, but the Monday after that, we'll be back recording our next show, breaking down a couple more teams in the SECs. We get ready for the season. So, see you in a couple weeks, AJ.
Y'all have a good one.